All right, let's journey back thousands of years to the sands of Egypt. Now, we all know the version you see on postcards, right? Pharaohs, mummies, and those incredible pyramids. But some researchers argue that the official story, well, it leaves out some truly strange details. In this explainer, we're going to dive into the theories that question everything we think we know, and we're starting with a monument that's as mysterious as it is famous.
And that question, so often asked about the Great Sphinx, really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? For centuries, we've just stared at this thing, but its true purpose, its real age, even what its face originally looked like, it's all up for debate. It's like this silent witness to a story that we just can't seem to figure out. So, our investigation begins at one of the most famous places on the entire planet, the Giza Plateau. It's so iconic, you'd think we'd have all its secrets figured out by now. But what if the biggest secret has been hiding in plain sight this whole time? The Giza Necropolis is, of course, the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. But here's the thing, while we tend to see the 3 Great Pyramids and the Sphinx as these separate, amazing structures, a lot of researchers are now focused on that last point, the geometry of the entire site. They argue the incredibly precise layout suggests it wasn't just built piece by piece over time, but was designed as one gigantic, interconnected project from the very beginning.
And that brings us to this huge question. If they were designed to work together, then how? I mean, the usual story of them being tombs and temples doesn't really explain why they're all so perfectly linked. But some theorists think a little-known shaft, buried deep beneath the sand, might just hold a clue to a much, much more advanced purpose.
And you know, that whole idea of everything being connected, that's where things get really weird. Deep below the plateau, there's a structure dedicated to the god Osiris that seriously challenges what a tomb even is, and it opens the door to some pretty mind-blowing theories. Tucked away, just a short walk from the Sphinx, you'll find the entrance to a place called the Osiris Shaft. It wasn't even fully explored until 1999. It's this wild, multi-level structure that just plunges straight down into the bedrock of the plateau. It's a place very, very few people ever get to see.
And when I say it plunges, I mean it. To give you a sense of scale, the final chamber is almost 100 feet deep. That's like a 10-story building, but going down, carved out of solid rock. And what they found at the very bottom is what really gets this mystery going.
So, way down in that flooded bottom chamber sits this massive, 9-foot granite sarcophagus. But just like a lot of other sarcophagi found in Egypt, it was completely empty. This is where the ancient astronaut theory really kicks in, the idea that aliens visited us long ago. They look at this and propose something crazy. What if this wasn't a coffin for a person, but some kind of high-tech device, maybe a machine for teleportation, or even a portal to a whole other dimension? But the mystery isn't just buried in the ground, it's also walking around in the form of the pharaohs themselves. And that brings us to Akhenaten. This guy was a total revolutionary who turned Egypt's entire religion upside down. But the most shocking thing about him is how he looked, or at least how he was shown, with this bizarre, elongated skull and features that, frankly, just don't look entirely human.
So what's the deal with his strange appearance? Well, you've got 2 very different stories. The mainstream view is that it was either a new, symbolic art style, or maybe he had some kind of genetic condition that affected his bones. But for ancient astronaut theorists, the answer is way more out there. They suggest that Akhenaten wasn't fully human at all. He was some kind of extraterrestrial human hybrid. And this is exactly why that theory just won't go away. It wasn't just him. His wife Nefertiti and all their kids were shown with these same strange, long skulls. And this isn't just an Egypt thing. They found similar skulls in places as far away as Peru and Malta. But here's the real kicker for the theorists. Some of these skulls are missing the sagittal suture. That's a joint that every single normal human skull has.
This global connection with the skulls is really just the tip of the iceberg. The next piece of our puzzle suggests that the real story of these ancient builders isn't just buried under sand, but maybe under the world's oceans.
Okay, so get this. It's a fascinating and totally verified fact. The limestone blocks that make up the Giza pyramids are packed with marine fossils. We're talking seashells, skeletons of sea creatures. Now, the standard explanation is that the stone was just cut from a quarry that used to be an ancient seabed. But this one little fact has led some people to ask a much, much bigger question. And this is the mind-blowing question it raises. What if the fossils aren't just in the stone?
What if they're there because the entire Giza Plateau, pyramids and all, was once completely underwater after a massive flood? This idea clicks with flood myths you find in cultures all over the world. But the theory takes a sharp turn away from just being a natural disaster.
According to this version of the story, the Great Flood wasn't an act of God. It was an act of aliens. The idea is that some extraterrestrial race used unbelievable technology to intentionally cause a global cataclysm. Why? To wipe the slate clean and bury all the evidence of a super advanced human civilization that came before us.
So, where's the proof for this lost world? Well, believers will point to a whole list of strange underwater finds. They talk about sonar scans showing these perfect geometric, city-like structures 2,000 feet deep off the coast of Cuba. There's the mysterious Yonaguni Monument in Japan, and even submerged stone structures in a lake in Wisconsin, of all places. They argue these are all the sunken ruins of that single global pre-flood civilization.
So you might be asking, if this is real, why isn't it all over the news? Well, as this quote suggests, some people believe there's a real effort to just dismiss these discoveries. The thinking is that if you admit there's a global network of pyramids, you'd have to rewrite all of history, and that's a headache nobody wants. So it's just easier to call them natural rock formations. And all of this brings us full circle, right back to the Great Pyramid itself. If we just for a second set aside the idea that it's a tomb, which by the way has its own problems, like no bodies ever being found, what was it for? Well, one of the most detailed and fascinating alternative theories sees the pyramid not as a monument, but as a machine.
The basis for this whole theory is just how the pyramid was built. The level of precision it's just staggering. For instance, its huge 13-acre base is perfectly level to within the thickness of your thumbnail. The outer casing stones fit together so perfectly you couldn't even slide a razor blade between them. To some engineers, this doesn't look like a tomb, it looks like a high-precision piece of machinery. And the clues on the inside, they're just as weird. Back in the 90s, a little robot sent up one of the pyramid's narrow shafts, found a small, sealed door with 2 metal pins sticking out of it. Years later, another robot drilled through that door and found a tiny chamber with these strange red markings on the floor. And to an engineer named Christopher Dunn, they looked just like symbols from an electrical circuit diagram.
So this all led to Dunn's pyramid power plant theory, which you see broken down here. He suggests that chemicals were fed into the so-called Queen's Chamber, which started a reaction that produced hydrogen gas. That gas would then flow up to the King's Chamber, where it would get energized by natural vibrations from the Earth. The entire pyramid would then basically act like a giant antenna, broadcasting that energy out as a focused microwave beam. It's a wild idea, but he argues every detail of the pyramid's design supports it.
Okay, so here's the crucial point. When you step back and look at all these strange things together, the weird geometry, the empty stone boxes in impossible places, the alien-looking pharaoh, the evidence of lost technology, you start to see the outline of a past that is very, very different from the one they teach us in school.
So let's just recap the journey we just took. We started with the massive puzzle of the Giza Plateau. Then we went deep underground to find these impossible stone boxes that might have been portals. We looked at a pharaoh who may not have been entirely human, and then we spanned the entire globe looking for evidence of a lost, sunken civilization. And it all seems to point back to one thing: technology, culminating in the mind-bending theory of the Great Pyramid being a giant power plant. Which leaves us with this one last question. If these incredible monuments weren't just fancy tombs for kings, then what in the world were they? Were they machines? Were they giant markers for visitors from the stars? Or were they something else entirely? Maybe messages carved in stone on a planetary scale, left behind by someone or something far more advanced than us. The story, as they say, is far from over. Thanks for joining me.